Many people have tried to tell my story, and all stories sound like the truth until they get cross-examined. This is my cross-examination. I am Althea Hart. So where I grew up is still there. It's in Brooklyn. And I grew up on top of a nightclub. It was called the Valhalla Jazz Club. And it was a real popular club. My mother used to hang out at the club, and then she became my father's wife, and they had the whole big wedding and everything, and my mother was pregnant with me. But then I don't really remember my parents together. Like, I remember one particular day, my mother was cooking, and my mother she wanted me to eat. So my father, I remember, like, as far as them like agreeing on something, I remember she was like agitated that I wouldn't eat, so he like scolded me. Like, I remember that like family time. That's the only time that I really remember my parents together. I probably was like 8 years old. But my dad, he owned the nightclub, and then next door to it was a laundromat, and then it was basically like the bar business, but you had the high rollers coming throughout the nightclub, and drugs was in the club. Like, that whole life and everything, I never really realized what I was around, but my father basically like walked away to save his life, like literally walked away from everything. I used to be angry at my father because I remember living this life, like this fancy, fancy, fancy life. And then it just all went away. I always felt like I was invisible. I feel like around me there was always so much going on as far as like people just living their lives and doing what they have to do for them. So I always had to defend myself and fend for myself and figure out things on my own. I stayed in relationships or was in relationships with older men because it was the void that my father wasn't there for, guidance. So the love that I was looking for, now looking back, I feel like I got it out of my relationships. I feel like my parents weren't there to guide me. It's kind of like I was the one that was guiding them, or it's always like, oh, Althea has it, or, it's like I had to do a lot to get where I'm at, and I should have not had to do or go through certain things because, I should have had someone there telling me, like, or I should have had a place to go, like, I was a lost girl who was searching for the fairy tale. And in my life, I am still, not that I'm searching, but I know what I want out of life, and I'm not gonna settle. I know that there are girls who are going through things that are worse than I've gone through. I feel like I turned out all right, but I know that I had to make a lot of choices in life, a lot of grown-up choices, and I took a lot of chances. And I want girls to end up like me or better and get what they want out of life and don't settle for less or only settle for what a man can give you, because you can give yourself more. If I could say that if I had any regrets, I would say that I got into relationships not knowing like who they were. I mean, I was a young girl who an older guy presented himself to me. You know, if he's living in New York City on 42nd Street with the bright lights and fancy cars, is why am I not going to get in the car and, have him take me out? I mean, it wasn't just the money, but he presented like a good life. Like, I do feel like my innocence was taken away. I got exposed to grown-up things as a kid. I was having sex at 15. The first guy that I had met, I always beat myself up because I feel like if I didn't get into music, I feel like I would have had a normal life, and I feel like I would have been married and we would have been together. But then the flip side of that is that I was 15 years old and he was 30 years old. So it's like, what did you see in me at that age that we had the connection, And when I would want him to hang out with me, it's like he wanted to go to the library. You know what I'm saying? It's like he didn't want to be in my world. So that's why I'm upset, because I feel like if you met me at 15 and we dated, why can't we date now and I'm 37? I feel like it's an excuse because maybe I'm too old for you now. My hardest part of my life was when I got locked up in Cobb County, Georgia. And it was contempt of court for 12 days that I had to stay in jail. I had gotten locked up right from a court hearing. I had my son with me, and I had to be separated from him. And that was the hardest part of my life. And that was my rock bottom when I didn't even have to be at rock bottom. And I knew that when I was getting out, like I was counting down the days, I knew that when I was getting out, that's when I moved from Atlanta to California, and then I get arrested again behind some BS. You just finally realize that you have to stop giving up on yourself, because these people don't love you. And now I have a son. I never thought that I would have had my child in the circumstances that I have had him, but I'm a mother now. I had to finally just do it and take another chance and not give up and just continue to have faith in myself. They didn't value me. I was an art piece and I was eye candy. Well, see, when I was with I was his girl. Like when I started meeting like and then they was giving me jobs, it became different. So I was kind of brainwashed that I didn't need to be in these music videos, but I went against the grain and was like, I don't care. I'm gonna be in these music videos and I'm gonna do what I wanna do. I didn't care if I was dating somebody that had money. I was going after my own. It was like an era that I can say that I was a part of, from like and the whole, I mean, like I was there watching everyone be from nothing to superstars, and it's like my dreams, I mean, I had the same dreams, but when somebody is always, like when someone is giving you everything that they're working for, it's like you kind of put yourself as you're like one of them, but really you have to have your own. Like I had to find my own. When I got my deal, like I bought my own car for myself. I didn't wait until I was this age to be somebody's like baby mama. Like, that was never me. I could have been somebody's baby mother for the check. At the time, he owned Rough Riders. I started dating him. We became an item, and I would go visit him at the studio. And on this particular day, leaving the studio, I was walking in the hallway, and he was like, "Dad, you're beautiful." He was like, "I'm shooting a video tomorrow." And that was my first video that I did. And then from that video, I started getting calls for other videos, and then I did R. Kelly Fiesta, I did Gyro, I Cry, Ashanti Foolish, I did Unpredictable Jamie Foxx, Snap Your Fingers, Little John, I did Pharrell, Angels, and I did Jay-Z and Alicia Keys, New York. And it was just a time in my life where it just was the jazz was coming in, and he didn't want me in music videos. It was like forbidden to be in a music video. It was like brainwashed to you don't need anything, it was like forbidden. But I always saw it as it was like a job for me. It was a way for me to get my face out there. And no one can't be like, oh, she was fucking me to do anything. I feel like people have had a bad perception of who I am because of the fact that I've been around so many successful people and attached to successful men. No, I wasn't any of their wives. I have been portrayed to have been someone's wife, but I feel like, honestly, I was just always the girl who was like, oh, if you have her, then you like that nigga. Like, it's like, almost was like a status symbol. Like, everyone just always knew, like, that's Althea, and if you have her, it must mean like you got the bag. So I kind of had to like turn it around from being like just somebody's girlfriend to now it's okay, I was a video vixen. And now I'm the singer that no matter who I knew, like all of those powerful men, like I had to literally do demos and prove that I can sing. This was around the time that I had moved to Atlanta, and I was done dating like guys in the industry as far as like music. I didn't want to do that anymore. So I moved to Atlanta and just got into, kind of dating guys that was in the streets. His name was and we actually met in high school. And he was older than me too, but he was more closer to my age. Still friends to this day. But he was like, I don't know, it's like he saw something in me. He was like, if you move to Atlanta, I got you. It was like, but I had already moved actually, but when he was there when, I found out about everything with me. So it was like, he was like, I got you. Like, if you could let go of all of that, like, he was friends with, and so I did the demos, gave it to him, we gave it to, and then gave the demo to Leo Cohen and Kevin Lau at Def Jam, and we had a meeting, and they brought me in, and off of one record they signed me, off of the record that I had did, and this was around the time when Foxy had her new imprint deal on Def Jam, and so I was the first artist that was signed on Ill9 at Def Jam. And that's how I got my deal. And that's something that I did. Like, none of them niggas could say that they did that for me. I would say that I've just been living my life and just been going with the flow, and maybe should have not did certain things. I decided to date older men because it gave me things that I felt that I probably would never get again from my parents. And why not? Like, getting the best in life. Like, what girl wasn't gonna say yes and live that type of life? And you know, you're around guys who are ambitious and who are cutting deals and riding jets and driving in Maybachs. And I mean, why wouldn't a girl who's growing up want to be a part of that and was infatuated with that and felt like, well, I'm there, I'm a part of this. This is my life, you know? I mean, out of anybody that I've ever been with, I was always in it for love. Maybe looking back on it, guys had different agendas because, you know, they're men and they're in industry and they got the world at their disposal. But as far as any guy that I was ever with, I was always in it for love. I now realize that even that type of love wasn't love. I learned how to love myself and give it to myself, unconditional. Because I am a mother now, I have started to look at the way that I have been portrayed, and I want my son to know that his mother fought for everything that she has, and in a world where we're like putting everything on the guy to be the breadwinner and to be the provider, I'm fighting to leave something for my son. In 2009, when the market hit, I bought real estate. But I feel like at this point in my life, it's like I'm fighting for my legacy as far as what it would be like for my son. And I want to clean it up, and I want him to know that the only person that has left him anything is his mother. Money has never been a problem. I have always been a saver, and I have always been the backbone for my family. And, you know, people see me and they're like, oh, she's materialistic. She probably spends a lot of money on this, or she does this or that. I'm like the bargain shopper. I don't waste money. You know, I've learned how to live within my means. You know, I probably was able to purchase property because I live below my means and, you know, have bigger goals. Definitely what I look like is not what I am. I got introduced to love and hip hop through D-Dot, who was the mad rapper. Y'all know who he is. And he was like, you know, there's this new show that I think you should go audition for. And so when I went down there, I went to audition for Love and Hip Hop, and they was basically asking me, well, who are you with? And at that time, I was done with, you know, dating in the industry, so I wasn't with anybody at the time. And so speaking to D-Dot, he at the time was managing Stevie J and invited me to a photo shoot, and Stevie and Jocelyn were there. And D-Dot later on that night said that Stevie wanted my telephone number. He thinks that Stevie can maybe do something with my music. You know, it wasn't gonna be like, oh, I'm just fucking with her. Even though that winds up happening, the whole point was we're gonna try to get her music out there. So after that didn't work out with me and Stevie, months went by, and then he invited me to the studio, and Benzino was there. Oh, I remember her. She was in this video. She did this, she did that. And it was, you know, kikiing back and forth. And then Benzino hits me up on Twitter. And then I contacted Stevie. I was like, why is your homeboy hitting me up? You know, and then he was like, I don't know, find out, what does he want? So I wound up hitting him back and was asking him what he wanted. And then he was like, wanted to take me on a date. And which, was odd. But again, you're like, fuck everybody. Like, you thinking like, okay. It really became something that was out of my control, that I felt like I was just caught up in a constant fight. My whole story was just about me in this like toxic relationship that was me constantly crying and feeling sorry for myself, and just like a pity party of wanting from somebody of something that I couldn't get, which was love. Like, why was it hard for someone to love me? And allowed this picture to be painted like it's hard for me to get love from somebody. I just was tired of that tired story and realized that even though I'm looking at it from love or went into it for love, maybe I'm like in this relationship that is like just for show and just for television. It's not anything, there is no love. Like, people come into your life for different reasons, to teach you things and to show you things. And a lot of times, the people that are your closest to you are the ones that are hurting you the most. You definitely can give your soul away to be seen, to be heard, for 15 minutes. But I think I took my 15 minutes for a longer time than just 15 minutes.